Brain cancer. Unlike almost every other cell in your body, most brain cells, specifically the neurons, cannot do one crucial thing: replicate. Because the brain sits inside an enclosed space, your skull, it has to stay in a constant state of balance. The slightest change in its environment can cause symptoms almost instantly. And because of this, cancers of the brain are actually quite rare, only accounting for about 1.4% of all cancer cases in the US, according to the CDC. But here's what makes brain cancer so terrifying. Even the earliest stage tumors, if they show up in the wrong spot, can essentially be a death sentence. Because tumors multiply and take up space, and they're greedy. They rewire blood vessels around them to funnel all the energy and nutrients to themselves, starving healthy tissue in the process. Now, if that happens in a place like your brainstem, which controls all your unconscious functions like breathing, heart rate, and swallowing, 9 times out of 10, no surgeon is going to risk operating on it. The symptoms depend entirely on where the tumor sets up camp. Could be persistent headaches, seizures, vision problems, personality changes, impaired speech or movement, or in some cases, the cancer grows in areas controlling sensation or motor function, meaning you could end up paralyzed or in constant unbearable pain. It all depends on location. Colorectal cancer. This one starts in the colon or rectum, and it's the third most common cancer worldwide. About 1 in 23 people will develop it at some point in their lifetime. And the frustrating thing about colorectal cancer is that it's one of the most preventable and most detectable cancers out there, but people avoid getting screened because the test is uncomfortable. The cancer usually starts as small benign growths called polyps on the inner lining of the colon or rectum. These polyps are completely harmless at first, but over time, sometimes over 10 to 15 years, some of them can turn cancerous. That's why colonoscopies exist. They find the polyps and remove them before they ever become a problem. But if nobody looks, they just keep growing. As the cancer develops, symptoms include changes in bowel habits that don't go away, like persistent diarrhea or constipation, blood in the stool, which people often mistake for hemorrhoids and ignore, cramping, unexplained weight loss, and constant fatigue because the tumor is slowly bleeding into the bowel and you're losing iron without realizing it. Risk factors include a diet high in processed meat and low in fiber, obesity, smoking, heavy alcohol use, and family history. Treatment usually involves surgery to remove the affected section of the colon, followed by chemotherapy if it spread to lymph nodes. When caught early, the 5-year survival rate is over 90%. When caught late, it drops dramatically. Get screened. Lung cancer. Probably the most deadly and tragically one of the most preventable cancers out there. It accounts for about 13% of all new cancer cases in the US and is the #1 cause of cancer-related deaths. And the biggest cause, as you can probably guess, is smoking, which accounts for 80 to 90% of cases. Any form of smoke inhalation into the lungs. And because of this, a lot of lung cancer patients get treated like it's their own fault, which is brutal when you think about the fact that 10 to 20% of cases happen in people who've never smoked a cigarette in their life. What happens is the cells lining your lungs mutate and start growing, uncontrollably forming tumors. Symptoms include a persistent cough that won't go away, which is your body desperately trying to clear the mass but it can't. Shortness of breath as the tumors take up more space, chest pain, and coughing up blood as the cancer eats through tissue from the inside. It can also cause fluid buildup in the lungs, which slowly drowns you in bone pain if it spreads to the skeleton. There are 2 main types: non-small cell, which is more common and somewhat more treatable, and small cell, which is extremely aggressive and almost impossible to surgically remove. Because the tumors are so diffuse, treatment includes surgery, radiation, chemotherapy, and targeted therapy, depending on the type and stage. The prognosis is generally not great, which makes prevention that much more important. Breast cancer. One of the most common cancers worldwide. In the United States alone, about 1 in 8 women will develop breast cancer in their lifetime. And despite what a lot of people think, it can happen to men too, although it's much rarer. It starts when cells in the breast
शायरी लिखेगी मैनू ते सोचेगी क्या तू मिट्टी दा बंदा मैं तू तां परी इश्क दी गलियां च खोया है दिल वे आस लगाई के जाए तू मिलवे कोल तेरे मैनू आन दे सोनी करा मैं कितने जतन नो सोनी दूरों दूरों मैं देखा तेनू सोनी